Hello, everyone, and welcome to Self Care in the City. We're back. This is the podcast where I usually sit down with founders and change makers from across the UK, and they're in a wellness space, and we explore how can we live healthier, more connected, and more fulfilling lives. Today's episode, a little different. As part of Unmasked, in our special series that we've been talking to men who have a genuine interest in well-being and who are helping to shape conversations around men's mental health, emotional resilience, and connection, we are delighted to be joined by Riccardo Sai. And
Hello.
is it Say or Sai?
Hi.
So excellent. I'm so glad I got that right. Riccardo has been incredibly supportive behind the scenes as we've been bringing Unmasked to life. So, Riccardo, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Chantal.
Excellent, excellent. So, I wanted to start by asking, before we talk about work, I'd love to start with you. And what does well-being mean to you personally?
Oh, that's a big question. Well-being has always been a big part of my life. Always been a very creative and sensitive person since I was a child. So for me, art was a form of expressions, but
Mhm.
also was very therapeutic. So in a way, it was a way for me to feel more connected with myself and with the outside world as well. So it was very therapeutic in a way. So well-being for me,
Mm.
it's always been super important. It was almost like a matter of life and death. And art was my way, it was my language to feel good about myself.
What kind of art was that, or is it?
So, well, I always been creative. So I would say that there's not a single type of art that I haven't done. I
Okay.
have done pretty much anything.
Really?
From I mean, when I was early, I used to be interested in stories. I think stories is probably something that I always been very fascinated with, and that's what I do even now that I run my own creative agency. Uh, at the beginning, I used to make short films, and then I started to make films and photography. But then I've done sculptures, I've done all sorts of art. So it's for me, it's just natural to express myself through art.
So I want to hear a little bit more about what you do then, because you just kind of touched on it, that you've done shows, that you've done art, but actually, what is it you do? I think you have, from what I understand and what I remember, it's very creative. It's directorial in some respects.
So what I do now, I've been working as a director and producer and photographer for pretty much all my life, and then I decided a few years ago to actually use creativity as a force for good. So really using all the tools that I learn over the years as a force for good to really drive actions and inspire actions. So I work with the organization in the social impact and sustainability space. And basically what we do stories. We create stories from a strategic perspective all the way to actually creating those stories. Could be anything from websites to films to contents. So we believe in the power of stories, and the stories that do matter. That's the kind of stories that we like.
What do you mean the stories that do matter? So, for instance, give me a for instance that you've had recently.
There's so the stories that we're interested in are the stories for clients and for organizations that want to really change the world for the better. So I mean, organization like yours, for example, and they yeah, exactly. And so organizations that not necessarily they know how to tell their stories, they don't even know how to find their stories, and
Mm.
so we help them to shape those stories from a strategic perspectives, like, so what kind of stories you should be focusing on, um, and what kind of how would you tell that story? So that's what we do. So we help organizations shape those narratives. So we work with governments, we work with philanthropic organizations, we work with NGOs, we have worked with UNICEF, with the Red Cross, as well as charitable organizations. So the list is very long.
huge. That sounds amazing. And I think so it's going to create so much more of an impact helping these organizations with the work that you do and getting their stories really told. And
Yeah.
I'm excited about working with you this year, but also in the upcoming years when we're talking about unmasked and what that turns into and men's mental health. So I'm keeping you on board. You're not going anywhere, Riccardo. um, right. So I would like to kind of delve in a little bit and actually talking about men's mental health. And I know that you are working with or you volunteer alongside a men's group. Can you tell a little bit more about that? And what do you think people often misunderstand about men's mental health?
Yeah. So I always been interested in well in learning more about myself as an individual, but as a man as well. So as a man, I really struggle to conform to what society thinks is a man. So I really struggle with that because I didn't fit in. I always been the outsider. So as a creative person, as a neurodivergent person, as um, as an artist, as a very sensitive person as well, as a person who also did different sports. I'm Italian. I was born in Italy. I used to play rugby, and nobody play rugby in Italy. So it was, of course, if I was living in England, it would have been different. But um, so it's always been difficult for me to fit into a box, especially when it comes to manhood, so especially in Italy, for such a macho type of culture,
Yeah.
I just didn't really fit in. And so I used to be bullied when I was in secondary school. So I really struggled. But somehow through art, as I was saying before, but also through creating my own community, uh, I managed somehow to carve my own
Wow.
and that's exactly what I did. So I created communities. So when I was in secondary schools, I always been interested in having those kind of deep conversation with not necessarily with men, but with other people. So I created a group that were both young women and young men as part of that group, and we used to kind of meet and talk about the deep stuff, the things that you don't really talk with your friends. I used to be part of a scout organizations, and we used to have those kind of conversations, and that kind of journey continued. And so I became Buddhist about 10 years ago, and as part of our
Doctrine or
as part of our movement, the discussion meetings were actually a big part of that. So, and that's what we do. When we have the men's meeting, we talk about our spiritual practice, but our life, our challenges. What does it mean to be a man, a father? And then more recently, I created alongside other few friends, which by accident they're all Italians, and we created a group of men, and so it's called the Inner Gardeners, which
mm.
it's a fantastic name. I absolutely love it, and
Is it here in London?
it is in London, yeah. So one of us now moved back to Sardinia, so we have a WhatsApp group, and we chat, we exchange encouragements, we meet, we have dinners,
I
and we have
love
online meetings.
this. I love it. I love this. The inner gardener.
Gardeners, yeah, yeah, exactly. So we garden our souls, we look after our hearts, and we are very honest with each other, and also we support each other in many different ways. As men, not a lot of men do that,
Yeah.
So we go to the pub, we do men stuff, but I never liked those men stuff. I mean, I used to have an allotment. I do sing in a choir. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that I'm a little bit different than let's say the traditional man, because I do things that the traditional man don't do. But
Yeah.
actually, I think a lot of men would like to do those things, but they don't do them.
Yeah.
Why?
So how I'm really intrigued by this group, to be honest. How often do you meet? How many members do you have? Where do you meet? I think our listeners would be really keen to find out a little bit more about
Yeah,
this
it's
type
a
of thing.
it's a private group, so it's not we're not opening to more,
Ah,
like, members. It's only 4 people. So initially there were like maybe 7 or 8, but then we decided to keep it quite small. But yeah, it could be. Sometimes I do think that would be nice to do a sort of a inner gardeners and friends type of gathering where we expand to, a few other friends.
oh,
We did talk about that, and but yeah, we meet, I would say, maybe once, twice a month, either in person or online.
wow.
And Bailey's is about having those heart to heart conversations. That's basically what we do.
I love it. I love it. So then, okay, so you're having conversations as men often from your perspective. Then, what patterns are you noticing among men today? So, I don't know, could it be loneliness, identity, friendships? What are you noticing in the conversations you're having?
I'm sure you have some other fantastic speakers talk about these. So I'd like to add something a little bit different that hopefully other people didn't talk about, because of course, self isolation is a big problem, especially after you, at the end of your career, or when, if perhaps you separate from your partner and your children leaves home because they go to university. It could be a very lonely journey, so. But I don't want to focus on that because I'm sure there's a lot of people who talked about that, but that's a big problem, and the suicidal rates of men in their 40s and 50s is actually quite high. I don't know the numbers, but I think
Mhm.
it's quite scary. But I'd like to add something about the fact that I think a lot of men wait to do things that they matter to them. They wait to do things that they do enjoy, that brings them joy.
Mm,
Further down the line, when they retire, when they are in their late 60s or maybe they are early 60s, when their life it's a little bit more placid, it's a bit more quiet, there's
mm,
more room for other things that they do matter. Unfortunately, the problem is that we don't really know how long we're going to live, so who tells you that you can have a nice pension when you are in your early 60s or whatever, mid 60s, you might drop dead,
so
when
true.
when you're 61, so all the things that you wanted to do, actually you can't do them anymore, because it's too late.
Yeah.
So my point is that rather than waiting, just do things now, so do you want very good friend of mine, he's going through a divorce. He started to go to the swimming pool, to the lido, I mean, I always been doing things that I were important for me, like, joining a spiritual practice, going to the gym, and spending time with friends, which for me has always been a very important part of my life, as well as singing or like growing vegetables. Or these are things that traditionally, perhaps you do them when you are um, in your mid 60s or something. I started to do them when I was in my 30s or maybe something like that. So my point is that why do you need to wait? So it's okay. Maybe now you can't because your life is too busy. But is it really that busy? Can't you squeeze in something else? Something that is very important. It's almost like an island that for you is there to grow, to nourish, and to make you feel better, and also to make you feel more connected with yourself and with other people as well. So
Mhm.
that's the big questions, and a lot of men, I think, they don't do that, and it's a big shame, I think.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And actually, when you think about it, it's not just men that wait, women do too. But I think it's detrimental for men who just figure, oh, I'm gonna, especially when you're young, you do a lot of like, oh, I'm gonna wait till I'm older to do that, or I'll do that down the line, or maybe I'll do this. So yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way. So thanks for that kind of perspective on it. But then my other question alongside that is, where do you think, and maybe it's a little bit the same, maybe it's different, but where do you think men get stuck most often? Is that a different question? Maybe it's the same answer.
um well, I'll try to answer in a different way.
Okay.
um I think men get stuck in patterns, in things that are, society says that are all right for a man to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing, what about dancing? So I
Ooh.
like dancing. I'm not a very good dancer.
Okay, what type of dancing do you
I'm
do?
not, no, let's not go down that road.
Oh, you're not going to share. You're going to come on to my show.
No, really, I tried a little bit of tango and
Okay.
very
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
and a bit of swing as well. But
Nice.
I'm definitely not very good. But who cares? It's not
I
about
love it. It's just about the movement. It's just about having
yeah,
fun.
it's the energy,
And the
etc.
music. I love the music.
Exactly, the music. So I think a lot of men they think in a certain way because they've been brought up in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, I'm a creative person, so I'm more in tune with my feelings. I'm more in tune with my creative spirit. I'm a spiritual person as well, so I'm Italian as well. So I think that can help a little bit. But actually, who cares? So it doesn't matter where you're from, how you've been brought up.
Yeah.
Take ownership of your life. So because as I was saying before, there's not much time really. So if you want to do something, just do it now. So
Yes.
and yeah, so I think a lot of men they get stuck, and also a lot of men they kind of everybody needs connection, everybody needs to feel
Mm,
connected
yes.
within themselves and with other people, but men think about community in a certain way, in the ways that again they've been brought up with. Women are, I think, a little bit more gregarious. They can't share more things, more intimate things with each other. Men don't usually do that. But it's about also having a leap of faith and having the courage as well to maybe join a different community or start a new hobby. There is this incredible movement in the UK. I think it's called the Men Shed or something like
I've
that.
heard of
So
this.
it's about men getting together
Yeah.
and uh, and actually building things. So I think everybody's got like a little um,
Shed.
shed or like working platform,
Yeah.
and then they start talking about men's stuff do while doing things. Actually, last week I've joined something that a friend of mine, I didn't know he was running, which was absolutely incredible. It was a session of sea shanties, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically these are the sailors type of songs that for centuries sailors and fishermen used to sing while fishing.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible to go to that session and singing with other. There was only like five of us, I think.
Mm.
So we sang, but not only that, it got really emotional. And then through songs, through singing that particular type of songs, that somehow is part of our DNA. Somehow it's just there, even if
Mhm.
we don't really are used to sing these kind of songs. So some people got really emotional, and that's the power of art as well, of really kind of making us feel more connected with ourselves and with the outside world as well. So, but it's about having the courage to go out of your comfort zone, and for me, it's kind of natural, but I think a lot of men don't do that. But I would really encourage men to do that because it's a lot of fun.
I think that sounds amazing, and I've never heard of. I've heard of sea shanties, but I don't think I've heard of a group that does kind of sing that or sing.
There's many groups actually. I didn't know that.
Okay,
It's almost like a movement. Yeah, yeah, there
right.
are.
We're going to hear more about these then, hopefully in years to come, and maybe I'll get them into Unmasked next year. Who knows? But now I'd love to kind of distill. I'd love for you to distill some of your experience into practical takeaways. And so, if you could leave listeners with 3 insights about men's well-being today, what would they be?
Um, Sorry, ask again the questions.
Yeah. I'm just looking for your insight into men's well-being,
Mm,
and if you could give any insight, 1 to 3, it could be 1, it could be 2 or
yeah,
3 or whatever, however many
yeah.
insight into men's well-being, what would they
I
be?
think actually I wanted to share something which it really resonated with me. There's a Bulgarian photographer who have done a photography project which was absolutely fantastic. I can't remember the name of this Bulgarian photographer, but he's done this photography project called Father and Son.
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's absolutely beautiful. And so what he did, he photographed father and sons, couples,
Mm,
holding hands.
mm,
There's something so powerful of having that kind of bond,
mm.
intimate, just holding hands, but it's actually very intimate for men, between fathers and sons.
Yep.
And so my takeaway is that before it's too late, have those kind of conversation with your dad, or
Mm.
with your children, because if you got children, if you got, yeah, like young boys, or maybe not even young boys, just have those kind of conversation with your father and with your son. I think is so important. And the
Why is it important? Why do you think that's important? I think it is, but why do you think it is?
I think it's important because when I look at myself, I realize how different is the way I see relationships. I leave relationships, and I'm talking about any kind of relationship, intimate relationship, emotional relationships, but
Mm.
also like work relationships. The patterns is very different from the previous generation, and of course, the even previous generation. So uh, I think it is better in many different ways. Um, so liaising with the older generation, with other fathers, is it's got some challenges. And I think often it's kind of easier to relate with your grandfathers rather than your father because of many. I don't know. I don't.
Because they're removed, isn't it? Because they're kind of removed from your everyday kind of father-son relationship. I think a grandfather probably is like you can go to them because they can give you the advice about their father, about your
Yeah.
father.
And also, you never really listen to your dad, isn't it? But also because they tell you off, they tell you to do things in a certain way. They have a sort of a role, which I do think is important. So, but somehow, can you, as when you are ready, can you actually have that grandfather and son relationship with your children and with your father? Because I think that's a good starting point. Because I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I think a lot of men have really deep relationship with their with their grandfathers, but unfortunately, they don't live forever. So that relationship doesn't last very long. So I would really encourage people to have those kind of conversations, and also build experiences. Just go for a
Yeah,
walk,
yeah.
share. Go on holiday, just the two of you. Or something like that. So I think men like to do these kind of things. Um, I think also like be be the initiator of those kind of more intimate um, conversation with other men as well. So as I said, I started like groups, so that has been my way of having those kind of conversation. But there could be many other ways. It could be like just picking up the phone and call a man friend who actually is going through a lot of stuff. Is reaching out to friends. But really kind of almost like um at the cost of embarrass yourself, almost like have the courage to have those kind of conversation with other men, beyond what is the usual pattern and structures of conversation. Like for example, maybe you always go to the football together.
Mm.
That's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But what about if one day you ask one of your friends to go out and have a conversation about other things? Maybe
Yeah.
you can set up a theme. Today
Oh,
we're going to bring together like three people. We're going to talk about friendship. What does it mean friendship for you? I think it's important, and men don't do that all the time. But being the catalyst of those kind of conversations, I think is important. It gives you agency, but also it gives you it makes you feel happy because you feel that many men are actually craving for those kind of heart to heart conversations.
and I think a lot of men probably find it difficult to do. That's why they are not even difficult, just the way they've been raised. They don't know if how the other person, how their father would respond to it. So they probably don't feel comfortable enough to do that. I think more men need to get comfortable with just showing their vulnerable side and bringing that vulnerable side out of the other men around them in their life.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's really, really helpful, those two insights. And I think I'm looking at lessons learned, perhaps, and back, if you look back on your own journey through life, what do you think are lessons, one or two lessons that you've learned that you wish you'd known earlier?
Uh, I think,
What's the laugh for? Where's that?
yeah, I was
Thinking out loud.
as, you're asking me to share all my life in 20 minutes, and it's not
Ah,
easy.
just okay, yeah,
No, no, but, I actually it's interesting because, for me, it's always been, I wouldn't say easy, but I felt comfortable with, dealing with my more vulnerable side, with my more imperfect, and also, let's say, the more feminine side, if we can say feminine side, my creative side, my more emotional side. So to me, it's always been more natural, and that's for many, many reasons. Let's not go into details. Especially when I was much younger, I I used to hang around more with women just because I felt that I was closer to them. We understood each other. We got each other better.
Yeah.
Um, if I had to go back, but then, we can't really go back, but, a big lesson for me is actually, I think men need to learn to be a little bit more like women and a lot of the things that we talked about now in terms of like being more in touch with their
Yeah.
emotional intelligence, do that
Vulnerable.
kind of work, etc. So that's almost like a lot of men don't do that. So I think it's very important that they do that kind of journey and they take those steps as well. But at the same time, I think that the other flip side of that coin is that we forget what actually means to be a man as well. And a man is also a pillar, is a man that women trust, that children trust. It's a solid person that has got solid values, has got is an example for other people, has
Yes.
got courage as well. So I've learned that very late in my life, that there were a lot of, let's say, more masculine traits of what it means to be a man that I deliberately didn't want to deal with. I completely like ignore them, and I said, "Well, I don't want to be that kind of man." So I went completely the other directions. And
But what about it? I just out of curiosity, why was it that you went the other way? Something about it you just didn't connect with, or it scared you, or what was it that
I had difficult. I don't know exactly. I think for me, it was almost like a survival mechanism. Almost like I had to. I
Mhm.
always been very curious, so I wanted to understand more about myself. I always been very much like a deep thinker. I really want to go to the bottom of
Yeah,
things.
another
So
level.
yeah, and I always been interested in people. I always been interested in myself. Who am I? What do I like? What triggers me? So
Mhm.
that always been very important to me. And but then, yeah, there's a lot of other things that actually are very important as well. So I mean, I wish I was more courageous in parts of my life. I wish I was
Mhm.
um, that I took more ownership, and I had. The courage to embrace perhaps paths that it took me years to really embrace. But it is life. Some people need decades together. Sometimes I see people like in their 70s and they're still thinking about the type of work they need to do, they want to do on themselves. So you're never sorted. That's the thing. So we think that, oh, when we get to our 50s or 60s, when we're retired, we'll be sorted and that will be nirvana. But it's not true.
Yes,
Our life is always in the making. So
always.
I think is I kind of accepted that, and but I do think is it very important to really think about what are the key 3 4 qualities of traditionally speaking that really characterize a man. So and I
Yeah.
think they can really vary for different men. They can be very different. So let's not forget about that. What makes us a man, but also let's look at the other sex as well, and let's look also a different version of that, a more how do you say, a more modern version of what
Yes.
does it mean to be a man, because that's also very important as well, because
That's what we're about, modern masculinity.
exactly.
So, loving this conversation. My last question, bringing it back to Unmasked. So, Unmasked happening this Saturday. If someone comes, what do you think, or what would you want them to take away from an event like this?
I think a mask as an event is an event where people will feel comfortable being surrounded by other men.
Yeah.
There's something so powerful being in a room with 20, 30, 40, 50 men, and some women, of course,
Yes.
but mostly men. There's something really powerful about being intimate, vulnerable with other men. Really, really, really powerful. I think you're trying to build a community. You're trying to build an experience, an immersive experience
Yes.
where people are comfortable to feel good about themselves. Hopefully, it's a transformative experience. I know it's short; it's only one afternoon, but
Yeah.
there's so much you can uncover in in one afternoon. So I think my wish is that a lot of people will come and they will just be like happy and comfortable to be exposed with conversations and speakers and experiences that will push them a little bit out of their comfort zone, but at the same time would make them feel quite okay with who they are, and perhaps also would give them some takeaways and things that they can keep building on.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. I mean, this is going to be, I mean, it's in the title, a resilience reset, right? So, Riccardo, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives
Thank you.
and for being part of this conversation. Um, one of the reasons I created Unmasked, as you know, is because I believe we need more spaces where men can show up as themselves and, as you said, connect with others. And I think they need to realize they don't have to navigate life's challenges alone. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And so conversations like this and like the ones we're going to have Saturday are so important, and they're going to be an important part of that. So everyone out there, to all the listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, you can watch the full interview on Self Care in the City YouTube channel. And if this discussion has resonated with you, we'd love, love, love to see you at Unmasked. It takes place this Saturday, the 13th of June at 2 p.m. at Republic. And that building is at East India DLR, just a 2-minute walk away in London. So thanks so much for listening. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Thank you so much, Riccardo.
Thank you so much, Chantel.